But here's what we know. Student organizing has always been the heartbeat of change. And we're not backing down. Are we going to back down?
No! This evening, we're hearing a powerful voice who's been telling the truth, fighting for justice, and lifting up our communities for decades.
To introduce tonight's keynote speaker, please welcome the President of SUNY Student Assembly, Gio Harvey.
How y'all feeling tonight? Y'all had the boots on the ground, y'all was wobbling, y'all did it all. Well, I'm excited to be here and excited to introduce this next speaker, who is a trailblazing journalist, unapologetic truth teller, and a fierce advocate for Black voices. Tonight's keynote speaker has spent decades challenging the status quo and empowering communities through media, activism, and fearless commentary. He is the host and managing editor of Roland Unfiltered, the leading... Come on, make some noise. This is the leading Black-owned digital news show and the founder of the Black Star Network. Make some more noise for that. So whether he's on the front lines covering civil rights or holding power to account, his commitment to truth and justice is unwavering. So if you can, if you're able, please stand and join me in welcoming the one and only Roland Martin.
All right. So how we doing? Good. So y'all been having a good gathering? Yeah. All right. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. We're certainly glad to be here to see all of you. Flew in this morning. I was in Dallas and Austin the last 3 days, and so glad to always be back. And anytime I get an opportunity to support my homegirl Tiffany Lofton, I can do that. We were was March 4th when we had the State of Our Union when we broadcast for about 7 hours. I purposely said I was not going to carry Donald Trump's speech. And so Reverend Dr. Bishop William Barber actually spoke. So we had a fantastic broadcast. It was probably, I think it was midnight. It was after midnight. It was 12:30 when Tiffany mentioned the conference. So she was just going on and on and on. And so we're doing this here. And I was like, stop. She was like, well, we're trying to raise this money. And we got these 35 Florida A&M students. So she was just running past it. And so I'm always trying to explain to her. She got sometimes slow down. And I was like, stop. All right, how much you need? See, what always happens, it happens all the time. Matter of fact, why don't you give me a handheld, because this keeps going in and out. Give me a handheld. So what happens is, anytime these things happen, and trust me, this happens so many times, folks they'll just be running right past it. And I don't believe in running right past, that's better. I don't believe in running right past the moment. And so she's about to make a next point. I was like, no, how much y'all need? See, one of the biggest mistakes that I think we often make is we say, well, what can I get? No, how much do you need? I had an uncle came to me once, and he needed his car fixed. He said, well, can I need to get about $200. I was like, how much your car costs to get fixed? So the problem there was, he needed $1,000. I said, me giving you $200, leaving you $800 short, and that's just wasting my $200. So I was like, how much do you need? And so then he finally said how much he needed. I said, well, this is what I can give you, and it was actually $500. I said, so I'm always about stating how much do you need. And so while everybody else was talking, I was like, no, Tiffany, calculate how much y'all need. And so then she came back, and she's like, okay, we need about $39,000. I was like, okay, that's fine. So at that moment, at 12:30, we still had more than 100,000 people who were watching live. In fact, on that night, we hit almost 250,000 live viewers, and we were the only independent media outlet that night that had that many people watching on YouTube. Everybody else were national media outlets. So I threw out the challenge to our audience, and so I'm driving home. It's like 2:30 in the morning. We're done, and Tiffany called me. She's like, "Uncle Roland, I called my guy. We raised $84,000 today." And I was like, "Okay, how much do you need?" Because again, when we talked about it, she was talking about how much we needed for just the students at the Florida A&M. I said, but how much do you need for the whole conference? And so then, and I'd already said I would do 20,000, and then so this is probably the only speech I've given where I've paid to speak. That normally don't happen. And so then other groups came in, and so then I said, all right, again, how much do you need? So we put the call out again, and I said this week, I said, hey, let's raise this final 17,000. Now, why am I saying that? This is not had nothing to do with my speech, but I'm saying this because one of the greatest mistakes that I believe people make, whether they are student leaders or whether they are adult organization leaders, we often ask for what we think they are going to give, but we don't ask for what we need. You have to understand, you never know who you're talking to. And you never know who you're talking to, who they know, who can actually help you to get what you want. So leaving here, I want you, when you go back to your campuses and when you're thinking about what you're trying to do, I want you always to think about, what do we need? How much do we need? How many people do we need? How many signatures are we trying to get? Because we often are negotiating against ourselves and not fully knowing what the capacity is of the person or the group who can help. You may be asking for 10,000 and they were looking at you waiting to give 50. And so that's just a lesson that a lot of folk just have to learn. And so I'm glad that we were able to do that, and I'm glad that it impacted folks being able to come here, because the reality is there are a number of people out here. And the reason these things are so critically important, we built this network in 6.5 years. We launched it September 4, 2018, my show. The network September 4, 2021. And literally, folk told me this was not going to work. They said, YouTube even said, hey, we don't think black news is going to work. And when I say black news, that means centering African Americans in every conversation. Now, I have other folk who watch. I had a woman from the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign who came on, and at the end she said, Roland, hold on, I just want to let you know, I had never heard of you. I had never heard of Bishop William Barber. I saw him on your show. I immediately called, got activated, and a year later, she was one of the 3 statewide co-chairs of the West Virginia Poor People's Campaign. This was a middle-aged white woman who was watching our show. I got a letter one day. We have people who give to our show, and the guy, he sent us a letter. He said, I'm a 70-year-old white gay man. Here's my $50 contribution. I love watching your show. And so the things that we talk about, anybody could tap into, but we center African Americans. In the 6.5 years since we launched this show, our fan base, our donors, 35,000 donors have given more than $3.5 million to our show, and that's how we've been able to build this. Because I didn't want to charge a subscription. I wanted to make sure the content was available to a wide variety of people. And there's nothing more amazing than when I run into people. When I came back today, it was a group of sisters. They had just come from South Africa, and they were like, oh my God, we've watched the show, we support. A brother from Nigeria stopped me saying, man, I watched. When I was in Jamaica last week with my twin nieces who turned 21, took them there for their birthday, folks were stopping me there. So do understand, you never know who is watching, who is listening, and how you can impact somebody's life just by you not being present, but having presence. Not being present, but having presence. And so that's one of the things. What, we're going to break out the Love Jones thing, something, all the fingers clapping. Ain't no incense burning, no candles. I'm sorry. Dating myself. All right. So I just want you to just always remember that. You never know who you're talking to. You never know how they can help. So always say, no, this is what I need, and they leave it up to them in terms of how they're going to support. So let's get, and also, by the way, when you also own your shit, you can do what you want. So we're actually live streaming this right now on the Black Star Network. So if you go to my YouTube channel, y'all can just share the link, tell folk, hey, y'all should tune in, tap in and watch it. So we're live right now. So again, I ain't had to ask nobody. I called Tiffany and I said, hey, are y'all live streaming this? She's like, no, we not. I think we're gonna record it. Then she said, oh yeah, we can live stream it to our page with an iPhone. I said, no, boo, that ain't gonna work. That ain't it. I said, I got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I bring my own stuff. Don't worry about it. We good. So it's the first time I've done that. So we're streaming this, and then we'll restream this. And again, this is about being able to share with people all across the country what is happening here. So let's get right into it. All right, I want you to turn to the person. First of all, if y'all are unfamiliar with the black church, there's a phrase they call, let me tag this text. Now, if you don't know what that means you clearly ain't never been to a black church. And there's some black people right here who look at me like, I ain't never heard it out there because they ain't been to a black church. So I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I want you to look them in the eye, and I want to turn to your left, and I want you to say, we got next. Okay? And I want you to turn to your neighbor to your right, and I want you to say, we got next. I want you to look behind you, the next table, look behind you, and I want you to look at that person, and I want you to point to them, and I want you to say, we got next. All right. How many of you have ever played a game of pickup basketball? Okay. Now, what happens in pickup basketball, you walk up and some folk are already playing, right? So somebody has to say, yo, we got next, to put yourself in line. Now, everybody knows in pickup basketball that the team that wins stays on the court. And if you lose, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell off the court. Which means that the point is that you want to keep playing. And if you keep playing, that means that you keep winning. And that no matter who else yells, we got next, if your team is still winning, y'all hold the court. Correct? I want you to think about that when it comes to what it is that you're trying to do right now. I put together a series, Facebook approached me a few years ago, and they wanted me to do this 5-part series, and I pitched to them that I wanted to do an intergenerational conversation. That I didn't want it to be just a traditional thing where even I interviewed. I actually took myself out of it. Now, it was fine anyway because I was getting paid, so it didn't matter if I was in it or not. But the whole point is I didn't want to actually be in the conversation. So what I did was I put OGs with next generation, and I wanted them to have the conversation. So you have, of course, Tiffany sat down with one of the great leaders of the former president of Spelman College. Who knows who that is? Yes, in Atlanta. There's only one Spelman, girl. What you talking about? She's like, Atlanta? Tiffany, who would you sit down with? Tiffany. Okay. You making young people look real bad right now by saying, oh my God, I forgot her name. Like, really? Is it your memory that bad? Ooh, y'all need to go ahead and give that girl some juice or something. Dr. Janetta B. Cole. That's right. Hell yeah, I know it's right. How you gonna tell me it's right? Ooh, black people with blonde hair, I tell you. Okay. So then my frat brother Philip Agnew, I sat him down with Charles Cobb, one of the SNCC leaders. Bree Newsom sat her down with Bishop William Barber. Brittany Packnett sat her down with Alexis Herman. Rapper Chris sat him down with Chuck D. And the reason we did that, and Cliff Albright sat down with Andrew Young. And I wanted them to have that conversation because part of the issue that we are facing is that there's constant tension, which I believe is unnecessary, between one generation and the other. The reality is no one is here without the previous generation, and we can't move further without the present generation. And the present generation has to also create opportunities for the next generation that's coming. And so that's why I wanted that conversation to happen, because I wanted them to have that dialogue, and we titled it, We Got Next. Now, you always got folk who are way too, they just extra. So I had some English majors go, well, you know, that's not proper language, saying, we got next. And I said, well, first of all, your ass don't own it. But I wanted them to understand is that that's a phrase that folks understand. And so I wanted to convey that notion in terms of we got next, meaning who's next in line, because we cannot change the future direction of the country if we're constantly living in the past and then asking folk who long ago put it on the line to keep doing the same work over and over and over. And so when I think about, for me, growing up in Houston, Texas, in Clinton Park, and what my parents did, they were two regular, ordinary folk, didn't go to college, no college degree, but they worked hard. They had a family of 5, and they cared about their community. And then when they decided to join with others to launch a civic club in our neighborhood, and they began to change things in our neighborhood. So for me, from the age of 8, 9, and 10, all the way through left for college, I was able to see what it was like, how a community could be transformed when regular, ordinary people got together and said, we want to do something to better the condition of our neighborhood. So everything about my life, when you hear me talking about things on the air, even when I was on CNN, when I was on TV One, when I was on Tom Jones Morning Show, all of that was through the prism of my parents and what they did and what I saw. And we were also participants because, see, they had free labor. See, it was 5 of us, so we were sitting having to go door to door, pass out flyers, put up signs. When they were up early, damn it, we were up early because we had to be there as well. I remember being on election day at the polls all day, passing stuff out. And so my understanding of, again, how do you organize is through that prism. So although I am a journalist, although I do media, I always get a kick when typically they're like, oh, you're an organizer. I don't call myself an organizer, but I do understand how it all works because of what I witnessed and what I saw through what they were doing. And what I recognize is that no community, no neighborhood, no city, no state, no country can ever continue to evolve and grow and change if you do not have next generation being prepared to lead. And so I take back to the basketball example. The basketball example is that if you do not prepare yourself for the game, y'all only going to have one run and you're going to be at the back of the line. What it requires is for you to work on your game before you yell, we got next. Now let me unpack that. I was in Dallas and it was a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, and it was a group of young black men and young white men, and they were playing basketball. Now, anybody watching this game could tell that the brothers should have blown them out 15-0. No, seriously, I mean, they were taller, they were faster. But here's the problem, though. They were not actually working as a team. They were operating as individuals. They were literally playing based upon their talent alone, but they were not playing to the capabilities of their talent. I'm watching one of the guys. He was the tallest player on the court, the biggest player. And I noticed that every time he would be on defense, he would be constantly pulling his shorts down. And his young kids blowing past him every time, and I'm like, that should never happen. He was so preoccupied with his shorts hanging that he forgot they were actually playing the game. And they eventually won, but they actually made their job harder because they were not playing as a team, not playing as a unit, and the other team did not have as much talent, but they were passing, they were cutting, they were doing all the fundamentals of the game. And so when it was over, I said, can I holler at y'all? And I didn't know who they were. I was just there with someone else. I said, I'm just curious. Why didn't y'all make that game so much harder by not actually playing as a team? Why were you constantly pulling your shorts down? I said, y'all should have blew them out. And they were, well, you know, I'm like, no, I want you to actually answer the question. And their coach was sitting over there nodding because what he was trying to get them to understand is you're going to actually come up against a team that can meet you on the talent level, but they're going to outplay you and beat you because they actually prepared themselves for the game. One of the greatest faults that we have today is far too many of us want to yell, we got next, but we don't actually prepare for the game. We're not actually putting ourselves and going through the time to go work on your game, shooting and dribbling and passing and doing all those things. The same thing when it comes to leadership. It's always amazing to me when somebody wants to be a leader and then you look at them going, but you ain't actually prepared for this moment. See, understand, to be a proper leader is actually not just being at this conference. It's what are the things that you're going to do once you leave this conference. When you're back at school and some folk want to take a road trip, do you say, I take the road trip, or do I invest my time and energy on working on my game? As a journalist, I remember there were times, look, when I play as Alpha, Phi Alpha, and Cass was like, hey, man, we're going to go to this party. No, I have this thing to do. Because, see, I wasn't only fixated on the present moment, the self-gratification of the party. I was thinking about what I was going to be doing 20 years after the party. And see, when you are thinking that way, it's just a totally different view of the world. And so you understand what it means to work on your game. It understands when you begin to say, how do I get better? How must I be able to change these? How do we get better when it comes to fundraising? How do we get better when it comes to connecting with people and bringing them in? See, again, there are a lot of folk who want the mantle, the title of being a leader, but they actually don't want to do the work that no one ever sees that is required of leaders. And that's actually where leaders are created. Leaders are created not when everybody is watching. They're created when nobody is watching. Leaders are created when everybody has left and gone to sleep and you are still up trying to figure out how to actually make this thing happen. When I was at Texas A&M, and it was 1989, and we were looking to go to the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. Now, we were broke. I don't mean we were broke. Like, we had no money. And so we're sitting there, and folks in the chapter, we had created our chapter, and they were trying to figure out, man, how are we going to do this? And so I said, well, why don't we just write a letter to like a bunch of foundations across Texas. And they were going, well, who the hell are we going to write to? I'm like, well, I'm sure there's a book that has a list of the foundations in Texas. So I'm going, library. Now let me help y'all out. Library is something that was pre-Google. It was a building you had some of y'all looking like, man, I ain't been to the library ever. So I'm like, I know there's a book in that building that lists all these nonprofits. And so we went and found the book. So here's what we did. We then put the letter together. We sent to 30 foundations. We got rejection letter. We got 29 rejection letters. And it was like, damn, this ain't looking good. Because the convention was in New York. We had no airfare money, no hotel money, and we ain't had nothing. Then one day, we got a letter in the mail. The letter in the mail said that, Roland, it's good to see that you are still doing great things, and since I first met you, and so I have enclosed a $1,000 check, and hopefully this can help you and your fellow Texas A&M students go to this convention. And the letter was signed George Strake, and he was the president of the Strake Family Foundation. That $1,000 check allowed for us to pay for our hotel rooms, to be able to go to this convention in New York City. Luckily, my dad worked for Amtrak, so I rode the train for free. I go to this convention. I had $75 to last the whole week. I ate at every free reception I was walking into, I wasn't even invited, but I was like, look, they got food and drink. I'm going to talk my way into every single reception. Now, some of you may say, well, man, that's awesome, man. That $1,000 check. But let me roll it back. Who is George Strait? Now, this is 1989. I met him in 1985. George Strait was actually 1986. George Strait came to my high school for career day. We were sitting in the classroom, and we didn't even know it was career day. So we were like, huh, really? So two speakers came in. It was George Strait, and it was an Asian woman who was a judge in Houston. Now here you got this Asian woman, a judge in Houston, and George Strait. When they read his bio, he was a former chair of the Texas Republican Party. Y'all looking like, see, y'all like, damn, I heard all the moans on this side of the room. But here's why you shouldn't moan. Walk with me. So they do their presentation, and now it's time for Q&A. It's about 30 plus students in the class. Coach Mumphrey, 11th grade government class, he's like, students, any questions? I'm sitting on the far right. Now, I'm always ready, and I'm looking, ain't nobody asking questions. So I was like, boom, I start throwing out questions. All right, hit another. Now, mind you, she's a judge, that's fine. But at the time, he was the former chair of the Texas Republican Party. Ronald Reagan was president. I start hitting his ass with questions. Oh, no, y'all understand, hitting him. And I know he was thinking, who the hell is this little black kid hitting me with these in-depth damn questions? So when the class is over, Coach Mumphrey says, Roland, can you walk the speakers to the next class? All right, no problem. So I walk him, and so we're talking, and you know, he's asking about me, and I was at Jack Yates High School for School of Communications, and man, we're talking, and ended up going to this class, and then I ain't pretty much having to walk him I skipped half of my classes because I'm walking him to other classes. He's sitting there impressed, and he says, he'd asked for my number, and that night he called my parents and just wanted to tell them, man, y'all did a great job, you know, raising your son. My dad was like, yeah, no shit. And then it was done. My dad was like, who this white man just called us? So then I told him who he was and everything like that. And so he was even so impressed. He said, man, you know, my daughter's a journalism student at TCU. That school could use a student like you. Calls TCU. Now, they're a private school. But I went to Texas. Like, we ain't had no money for no private college. But I appreciate him calling. Fast forward, email him some stuff like that. And then 1989 happens. Now, some of you may say, well, I don't understand. But he still sent a $1,000 check. He sent the $1,000 check because he remembered what happened 4 years later. He remembered in the class that I was sitting here hitting with detailed, in-depth questions that was challenging him on policy, and he was impressed by that. But see, that's also not the applause moment. Because see, were it not for me reading the newspaper every day, my dad was a news junkie, were it not for me keeping up with politics, I would not have been in a position to ask him those questions. And then if I were not in a position to ask him those questions, if I didn't have the courage and not succumb to peer pressure to say, I'm the only one asking questions, then I would not have even had the ability or the opportunity to challenge him with those questions. He would have never saw me, recognized me, then he would never remembered me, and 4 years later there would never have been a $1,000 check. Now, why is that important? Because it was at that convention when I ran for the national board as the national student representative for NABJ. It was in that position I began to make changes and begin to meet people in the industry. Nearly every job that I had for the first 20 years of my career were a result of the relationships established at that particular convention. So now, imagine if I had not put in the work unbeknownst to me of watching news, reading the paper, retaining the information. Now when the opportunity presents itself, I now can hit him with questions. He then sees that, talks to me, recognizes that results in what takes place in '89, and literally my entire career was driven by those relationships. That's preparation before the game. What I'm trying to get you to understand is you don't know who you are going to run into at any given time, at any given day, yet when it's time to play, when it's time to be in the game, you like, yo, I'm ready. I got next. I'm going to hit you with questions. See, that's why it drives me crazy when I go to places, and I go to many universities across the country, and I'll talk and I'll say the same story. And you know what ends up happening? Folks sit in a room and they say nothing. And I'm like, did they not just hear what I just said? And see, what they don't understand is that I've hired students. I've hired people. So if you never, ever make an impression on someone, they will never remember you. So if you never talk, if you never ask a question, you never present something, then the person who's standing there will never, ever know who you exist or where you are. And so the challenge for every single one of us is to remember that you don't know when the opportunity is going to present itself for you to make an impression. But what should always happen is when the moment comes, you are then ready. When that moment happens and you don't know when, it may happen on your campus, it may happen off campus, but I can tell y'all something right now. It does not matter what I did as a student, but it ain't gonna change today. I can go from doing something to being in that mode faster than you can go, you can drive a Lamborghini. We came in, Tiffany's like, hey, do you want to come to the room and where you can run? No, I'm ready. I'm like, I don't need to go to the room to rest. She's like, well, get your thoughts together. No, my thoughts together. Let's go. See, that's the difference between leaders. Leaders grab the moment. Leaders assume the mantle of leadership. And lastly, leaders never ask permission. The greatest thing I can't stand hearing from next generation leaders is when they gonna pass the baton. Damn, somebody passing a baton, run your race. That is the one thing that I see that keeps people down. They're waiting for somebody to tap them. They're waiting for somebody to say, now you can lead. That means nothing because leadership shows up even when you don't have a title. I'm going to close out with this. First of all, I'm going to help you out. That red card you holding, can't nobody see that red card way the hell back there. So I don't even know what the hell that is. It say 510, I don't know. You got a red card and a yellow card. What's this, a soccer game or something? What you doing? I don't even know. Just letting you know. I don't know. So your ass is back there waving like you in church. I don't know what he doing. I'm going to leave you with this before we go to Q&A so I can get you to understand what happens when you lead even without the title. I'm working at Wendy's in college. Guy comes up, orders a burger, fries, drink, fix the order, take his money. I'll go about my business. I come back 10 minutes later. He is standing at the counter with the manager and got the burger and the fries laid out on the counter. He got the bun, everything separated. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with him? Like, he ain't going to eat the burger and the fries? So I walk over, and the guy say, can I speak to you? Yeah, sure. He goes, this is really well done. And I'm like, no shit. He's like, applied the mayonnaise properly, a good piece of tomato and lettuce. I'm like, what is wrong with this white man? Go eat this burger. Why is he he's literally breaking down the burger? And so he asked me, this is he's like, the meat was cooked properly. I was like, well, yeah, that's what y'all showed us in the video. That's how we're supposed to make a burger. I'm trying to understand what the issue is. He goes, let me ask you a question. He said, you a manager? I said, no. He goes, are you assistant manager? I said, no. He goes, are you a crew chief? I said, man, no, what's up with all these questions? He said, what? Then he looked at me, he looked at my pants and my shirt and my apron and my hat. He's like, so what are you? Man, I work here. He was sitting, he goes, well, let me tell you who I am. He said, I'm the regional manager. I cover all of the Wendy's in this region. I have the highest performing Wendy's in the entire region. He said, you can come work at my store anytime. I said, man, your store way too far. This closer to my house. But here was a lesson. He was trying to figure out his uniform is clean, it's crisp, he made the burger right, fries right, everything. He associated great work with the title. He thought I was a manager, assistant manager, crew chief. No, I was a line worker. The point there is, great work can happen even when you are not the president. You can be a great leader, you ain't even on the executive board. If you let your skill set show, somebody will recognize your skills. The lesson there for so many of us is not to get caught up in that I wasn't elected, that they didn't pick me. The lesson is, if I show what great work looks like, great work will be recognized by somebody else. And when you focus on the work, when you focus on the skill set, when you focus on getting the task done and not worrying about who gets credit, and not worrying about who speaks at the news conference, and not worrying about whose name is on the social media page, when it's about the work, then the reward is you know what the work produced. I want every single one of you when you leave here to understand that you've had great meetings and conversations and training sessions, but when you leave here, you are going to have to spend lots of time working on your game, working on speaking, working on writing, working on all those things. And there may not be people around you to ask, and they will not even be there. But when you put in the work before the game, when it's game time, then all you say is, let's go. We got next, because we about to run this court. That's what real leaders do every day. All right, we got Q&A. So you got the microphone? Okay, we have rules. So do this here. Zoom that camera all the way out for me. Appreciate it. I didn't bring the remote control. Why are we killing the lights? What happened? Yeah, you ain't got to change the screen? Okay, listen up. You got the microphone. Don't let them touch the microphone. You got it. If anybody put their hand out, smack their hand. Okay? Because you give up the microphone, we're going to be here all night. All right, so y'all got it? So I need you to assume the position. State your name, where you from. Don't touch. What's your name?
Sienna.
Sienna, don't touch the microphone or Sienna's going to cut your ass, okay? All right, so here's what we're going to do. How we're going to do this here. We're going to go this side, that side, back, forward, okay? All right, so who on this side wants to ask a question? You can't ask a question because you introduced me. Nope, that ain't going to work. Nope. We'll come back to you, but you got a question right here? All right. We got a question here. Who's over here? All right, I saw you first in the pink and green right here. Who's in the back? All right, brother with the white arm, I'm going to come to you. All right, go ahead.
My name is Randy from
Randy, you got to stand up, Randy. Stand your ass up. Just sitting there all chilling. Randy, where you from?
Tacoma, Washington.
Got it.
What role does media play in shaping leadership styles, and how can leaders use it effectively for their message?
All right, I'm going to take that question, and I'm going to twist it a little bit here. Media can build leaders. It can create leaders. But it doesn't mean they're the actual leader. Media can also create jealousy. Okay? A lot of people kept fixating, if you look at the Black freedom movement, also civil rights movement, this notion that Dr. King was a leader, but he wasn't the leader of the movement. You had Dorothy Height. You had SNCC leaders. You had CORE. You had Urban League, NAACP. But even amongst them, there were people who were jealous. Roy Wilkins was leader of the NAACP, called King a Radical in 1959. He was jealous of King. Thurgood Marshall was also jealous. Would say, well, King out here martyrs, but he sticks us with the legal bills. Congressman Adam Clayton Powell was jealous of all of them as well because he felt that he was driving legislation through the halls of Congress. Why were they getting all the credit? So media attention can create that. King was very smart. When he won the Nobel Peace Prize, he could have kept the money for himself, but he actually distributed the money to the other civil rights groups. Now, Coretta wasn't happy because Coretta was like, yo, there's a broken down ass house. We need some new furniture. Why are you giving all this money away? Because it was essentially, it was like, and he was like, we can't give the impression that we're living off of the movement. She wasn't happy because she was the one living in a house dealing with stuff that was broken. But he was understanding of the perception in terms of what a leader looks like. So we got to be very careful because what media wants to do, media doesn't want to talk to all 15, 20 of y'all. They want to go to one. And see, they want to amplify one. And so you have to be very astute as a leader to understand that if you are the one who's front-facing and you're getting the attention, you have to be very mindful. How do you then bring in others? I'm going to go back to basketball. You can't shoot all the time because sometimes you might be double teaming. Damn it, pass the ball. Smart players know how to pass the ball. Magic Johnson once said when he went to a gym and played and pick up basketball, he said, I would not pick the 4 best shooters in the gym. Somebody said, why? He said, because it's one ball. Somebody got to rebound. Somebody got to play defense. So we all have different skill sets. So we need to be very mindful of that. Now, media is extremely powerful and is important. It's called mass media for a reason. So I can tell you numerous places where folk will be at an event and we'll be sitting here and they'll be like, man, this is a great event. Things are going well. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But it might be 300 people in the room. But you might be talking to 20,000 who's watching. And so that's the power of media. So there has to be a media strategy. King understood the need for that media strategy. Do me a favor, change the wall back to blue because it's creating a silhouette on the live stream. See, I pay attention to everything. And so we have to understand how to effectively use media, how to drive your agenda, how to move it properly. And that's why media is important. But you cannot overstate the value of media when it comes to driving a message. Because again, you could be speaking to a handful of people here, but you could be reaching thousands, and you don't even know who's even watching or listening. And so it's very crucial. And the beauty of strong leaders, again, I go back to King. He understood media. He understood antagonists and protagonists. He understood, but also cultivating media. Last point, one of the greatest mistakes that people do is they want to run to mainstream media. It happens all the time. I got people who are politicians, they were killed for MSNBC to call them, but they've been waiting 9 months. They could have been on my show every month. But then they go, but you ain't MSNBC. I'm like, you're right. And I don't want to be. And see, again, it's understanding how do you cultivate relationships because it's all about how can we get our message out to a broader audience. So I tell everybody, never overlook independent media. Don't overlook student media. Understand that you can use media to your advantage, but do not be used by media. Right here in the green. What? Sienna, where you at? Sienna, you got to get on this thing, Sienna. I done told you. Next question, the brother in the back, what's your white armband? Raise it. See, Sienna, look at him. He next. Okay, all right, sister, go ahead.
Greetings, I am Mia Dennis, a first-year pre-law English scholar, hailing and attending the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Thank you.
That's a long intro right there. Well, go ahead, I'm messing with you.
My question to you is one. So with student leadership specifically, there's an ongoing trend where student leaders typically, not all, will pursue roles and organizations, not always for the work behind it, but because to build up for those things later on, meaning they neglect the value of those roles. So what occurs is a resume building situation. So my question to you is, do you believe that this is going to incapacitate student leaders should
again, I go back to the example when we talk about work. I mean, sure, you can have the title, but what are you actually doing with it? You also have to be discerning as a student of those very people. Look, there were brothers who wanted to play as alpha, and we knew exactly why. They didn't get in because we didn't want somebody who wanted to wear the letters for another reason but ignore the brotherhood. So we were very mindful of that. And so one of the things that we did was we studied folk. I remember we had a situation with a meeting, and guys sitting there, it's about 50 of us sitting around a table, and my blood brother says, do you remember me? The guy was like, he was trying to figure out how he wanted to answer. Then he goes, do you recall playing basketball 3 years ago when you came into the gym? And you cussed me out in the gym. My brother started breaking this thing down. Now my man started sweating because he's remembering. He didn't understand that we were paying attention 3 years earlier. I'm always paying attention to people's motives. People's motives will always be revealed by their actions. And when people's motives are revealed by their actions, and then there are people who are only there for resume building, that's when I say, let me holler at you. And we have a conversation. Now, if they choose to keep down that route, then I'm going to take them out. Oh, let me be real clear. I've never had any problem taking people out in leadership. Because if you're not there for the right reasons, then I don't want to be associated with you. Because if you're there for ulterior motives, which is what you described, or for other reasons, then what that also means is you will sell the organization out for your benefit. So it all comes back to why are you here? Which is why when we are picking leaders, we have to be picking leaders for real reasons. Oh, sure, so-and-so speaks great, but they can't plan worth a crap. So-and-so looks great, okay, but can they organize? We have to recognize that we are all humans. We pick people for wrong reasons. I did a video after the inauguration of the twice impeached criminally convicted felon-in-chief, where I don't use the title president because he ain't earned that, where I said America wanted a king, they got a king. Remember, you read Samuel, the people of Israel said, man, we want a king. God's like, why y'all got a king? You got me? No, we want a king. Okay, I'm going to give you a king. Oh, I'm going to give you a king. Hey, Saul. And like, man, why you had to give him up? No, y'all wanted a king. We got to be mindful. Why was he picked? He was the tallest. He was the most handsome. We pick folk for reasons like that. And so we have to learn to understand how do we discern leadership and what are the requirements of leadership. It's not always who's the most vocal. It's not always who is the most popular. The question is, what are the tangible assets that we're looking for in a leader? And even when I was in high school and college, and that was the whole thing, and you can make the decisions. I remember in high school, we were sitting there and trying to decide whether we had this assembly with seniors, and they had just said that half of the class hadn't bought their graduation invitations and all kind of stuff. So they discussed a class trip. Now, all the leaders up there entertaining this silly conversation about Jamaica, Cancun, and I was like, they broke. Why are we having this conversation? So I got up and I said, give me the microphone. I was like, why are we doing this? Y'all came to 4 graduation invitations. Your ass not going to Mexico. We in Houston. I said, so let's just be clear. Y'all need to take a senior trip down to Galveston for the weekend and come back. Now, man, they were all cussing me out. They were like, I wish he'd sit his ass down. They were dreaming. You know where they went for the senior trip? Galveston. But the leaders did not want to go ahead and be honest about the reality. I'm like, no, we ain't doing this. And so that we have to be very smart how we pick leaders. Too often, as students or as adults, people once we finish, we pick people for the wrong reasons. We also cultivate people for the wrong reasons. And the last point is, this is the most important thing about leadership. everybody is not destined to be the president or the vice president. I'm going to use sports again. You may be a great defensive back coach, but you're not a head coach. So when you know your gifting, focus on your gifting. Some people like, bro, I do not want to be the person out front. No problem. Your leadership can be in this here. I'm not going to force you to be out front. And so those are just some honest things that we have to be able to do. But we got to be willing to go to some folks and say, let me holler at you, and check them on their motive and their intentions as to why they're here. Question. See, and I don't hand him the microphone. He talked, man.
My name is Charles Walker Hoover. I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts. I'm a junior in the W.E.B. Du Bois Department of African American Studies at UMass.
Another long title.
And my question was, how do you operate in difficult rooms and change the culture of those environments?
First of all, the most important thing is how do you quickly assess a room? You have to be able to assess fairly quickly. The greatest way that you assess a room is you listen. You watch. I look at how people move. I can be in a reception where, and I'm watching. I mean, I'm mindful who's in the room. I'm mindful of how one presents. I'm mindful who's laughing loud and who's not. I'm mindful of all those different things. And so once you then go in, now you sit in that room and you're just watching and you wait. You're just checking out who's doing what. You're checking out who's overbearing, who's loud and wrong. Okay? Then you're looking at who's quiet and right. And so you're assessing all of that. That's where that is a skill set that you also have to develop. Because, and I'll give you an example with television. So when I was on CNN, I know who I am. So if we have even a panel, if there's a panel of 8 people, you can put me on the end. I'm good. I'm going to handle my business. But I'm also studying the people. So if I'm on a television show, and there are 4 people, I'm looking at who's an A, who's a B, who's a C, and who's a D. So typically when I did my show, I had the D sitting right next to me. Because that person, if that person was on the end of the set, he or she wasn't going to be able to get a word in edgewise because they would get run over by the A and B. And so I was always, who got booked? No, sit them here or sit them here. I would never sit an A right next to me because an A can always speak whether they on the end or right next to me. I actually would do other folks' show and I would tell them, don't sit me next to the host. Put her or put him right here. They'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Soledad O'Brien, when she had a morning show, one of the producers, why do you always want Roland on your show? That's why, if y'all see that shirt, I'm a different kind of black, that was a phrase. One of the executives told her that, yeah, he's different. So that's what made that shirt up. It was a quote that came from her. Because she said that when I'm hosting, I could just look at Roland and he knows exactly then what to do. Because I'm also assessing all the other people who are on the set. Now I remember one day it was breaking news and the woman who was next to me, she was not a journalist and this woman was terrified. She was just like, what in the hell did I walk into? But it was breaking news. And I reached over, tapped her hand, you'll be all right. I then wrote a question and slid it to her. And I tapped it and I said, ask this. And then when the show was over, she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. But because I was paying attention, I'm seeing her body language. I'm seeing her breathing pattern. I'm seeing how exasperated she was. Well, we were on live television. I needed to calm her down. She needed to feel like she was part of the conversation, so slid her a question, and now it's a group thing. It only happens if you're paying attention. And that's really the kind of assessment and discernment that you have to have, no matter what room you go into. There are times when you're going to be the strongest voice in the room, and I've been in that situation many times. But then there are other times when I'm real quiet, and then people look at me like, Roland ain't never quiet. Because the moment I don't need to be at an 8. The room requires me to be at a 3. Now, when I need to be at a 9, I'll go to 9. But I can modulate. I can go from a 1 to a 10 depending upon the temperature of the room. It's just understanding how you read the room. So for next question, let's see here. That side, come up. Let's go. We're going to go here. Then we're going to go maroon. Then we're going to go here, right there. Name, come on. Name, where you're from?
Hi, I'm Lotus Taylor. I'm from Westchester, but I go to school at Binghamton University.
Binghamton?
Binghamton.
I think I spoke there.
It's upstate. I appreciate that you're an alpha. My dad's an alpha.
Good man.
Yes. I was going to ask, and I wrote it down, seeing as USSA is still getting back on its feet, I was wondering if you had a fatal flaw that you've seen with restarting movements or organizations that you feel that we as student leaders should avoid, and how we could do that.
The biggest fatal flaw is not understanding how to cultivate, again, next generation. It's a numbers game. So you take, I'm just going to use a fraternity example, okay? The chapter exists because you got to have the next group. So if you have a line in the spring of 12 people and you don't have one in the fall and you don't have one in the spring, but that line is comprised of mostly juniors and seniors, you're going to have a problem a year later because you don't have members. So it's understanding, always knowing who are seniors, who are juniors, who are sophomores, who are freshmen. Are we top heavy with juniors and seniors and don't have enough freshmen and sophomores? Also, how are we bringing them in? How are we cultivating them? Because the other fatal flaw is you have juniors and seniors who are leading, provide no leadership opportunities for freshmen and sophomores, and then when they become juniors, they're actually not ready because you didn't teach them, you didn't cultivate them, you weren't training them, you weren't identifying them. I'm just going to use the example for me in television. It's the exact same thing. I have panels on my show. I am constantly looking at people. I'm going to give him a shot. I'm going to give her a shot. And then when they come on, ooh, that person really sucked. They ain't getting anybody back. Or they have some potential. Or, damn, they were real good. And see, so you just constantly are assessing people and their skill set. And you're looking, it's a numbers game. Because there's nothing worse than building something and, man, you revive something, then it's dead in 3 years. The whole point of organizations maintaining the stability, and this really is a huge problem when you talk about age, because you age out. When you talk about organizations, once you become an adult, that's from there till you become an ancestor. So you guys got to be very mindful of that, of what's the makeup of the people in the room. Am I talking to people who are going to be gone in a year? We got to make sure that these people are aware of these things coming afterwards. And leadership also is smart enough to know we're going to have to show you. I remember we had a fraternity reunion, and they said we have brotherhoods. And so they were like, all right, so food's coming, and our girlfriends are coming, and the AKA is coming in time. We were like, did they just say girlfriends and AKAs coming? Whoa. That ain't no brotherhood. Literally, those of us who graduated said, turn the music off. Tell everybody y'all invited, their asses ain't coming. And these young cats were like, the hell y'all doing? We're about to show you what an actual brotherhood is. That was at 8 p.m. We didn't leave till 7 a.m. They had never, now that was a fault of the brothers who brought them in. because they never showed them what a real brotherhood is. A brotherhood is not a party. A brotherhood is not a get-together. It's a brotherhood where you have real conversations, deep, serious conversations. That night, we were dealing with a brother. We took the issue of murder. Man, I could never kill. I never kill another man. One brother's like, I can, and I did. He was in the Iraqi war. He said it was hand-to-hand combat. One of us was going home in a body bag. Completely changed the conversation. Same night, one brother got saved in the brotherhood. So leadership has to show next generation what it is supposed to be. And too often we get caught up in not doing that. So just being constantly mindful of how do we create that. And the last point is, I mentioned earlier, always watching. Always watching. I'm trying to think. I had met you before Philadelphia, right? So I met Tiffany, and I was like, I'm going to put Tiffany on the show. So I'm like, okay, she's going to be good on the show. She's going to be good. So I had Tiffany on the show. So Tiffany was working for a certain labor union. I ain't going to name it right now. Y'all can go look at the resume. So they thought Tiffany was on my show because of them. I ain't give a damn about them. So for like a few weeks, Tiffany wasn't on my show. I was like, what the hell? So I go to the producer. She's like, okay, Roland. Okay, Tiffany promised me not to tell you. Well, that was the worst thing to say to me. Open your damn mouth. What's the problem? Well, here's what happened. So the place where she worked, they were like, well, we're going to send someone else to do Roland's show. I was like, I didn't invite their ass. I invited her. I said, so I called Tiffany. She's like, oh, my God, they told you. I'm like, hell yeah. I said, Tiffany, tell your bosses they can kiss my ass. I'm not inviting them. I invited you. I don't know their ass. I said, and I only have to mention them. We can take their name off. They wanted me to put her boss. I said, I don't know your boss. I ain't met your boss. Your boss, no. See, again, I knew what I saw. I saw her. I saw her voice. And I see others that way. So I am always paying attention to who could do this, who could do that, who could be in another organization. I'm recommending people because I'm paying attention to the room. And I'm paying attention to the people around me and how they could be of service. And there's somebody, right now they're not strong, but they can be strong if they're taught and coached. And that's another thing that we have to do. We have to understand that we can also teach and we can coach and we can sit here and provide examples to help somebody and bring them up to the level we want them to be at. And that might also mean, last point, putting into them and giving them the courage to actually go to the next level. Some folk, remember, you're dealing with folk who are 19, 20 years old. It was different for me because I was in organization leadership in the 7th grade. We literally took over the junior Knights of Peter Claver. This was a black Catholic organization. They had Knights of Peter Claver, Ladies Auxiliary, they had the junior division. We were the state conference. We took it over. Like, took over the whole state. I was in the 7th grade. So I was a little different. Like, a little different. So when I get to college, hell, this ain't nothing. I mean, rewrote the Constitution in the 8th grade. So it's understanding and looking at people and say, how can I bring them up? How can I teach them? How can I coach them? And even somebody who's really talented, you can also teach them to also go next level to get more out of them. Question right here in the maroon, right there.
Hi.
Troy.
My name is Zaria Afton. I represent Troy University.
Y'all got a great Rosa Parks museum there.
My question for you is, being that you are an uncle, I wanted to ask, being that Black women are the demographic for the U.S. as being the most educated, I wanted to ask, how would you say that we should embrace our authenticity while still striving for success in predominantly white spaces?
Well, first of all, being authentic is critically important because that's just the essence of who you are. And the reality is we also have to understand that how we have to turn things on, turn things off. But you also reach a point where you say, this is just who I am. And you recognize, you have to be, I go back to discernment. You got to be also, you have to recognize your microaggressions. You have to recognize, how people how they bring their bullshit to the table. When I worked for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, I remember I was working on something, and my editor, Kate Northcott, she was standing right next to me, and she says, yeah, you really need to get your production up. So I stood up, and I walked around in a circle, and I'm going to cuss this white woman out. I said, let me breathe. She's like, we should take this to the office. I said, yeah, you want to take this to the office. I said, but I'll be there in 5 minutes. So I went to my desk and I printed some stuff out. So I walked into the room. I literally walked in. I was like, I threw it on the table. You might want to read that before you start talking. Now, she had challenged me on my production as a reporter. What Kay didn't realize is I tracked all of my stats. I tracked how many stories I wrote per week, how many stories I contributed to per week. I wrote where my stuff was on the front page or the Metro page. And so the first sheet was my production. She goes, we don't measure production by how many stories you do. Well, what the hell is production? I said, I understand. Turn to page 2. 65% of my stories ran on the front page. 35% ran on the Metro cover. I said, now, if those are not quality stories, you've got a problem. Because you're one of my two editors. I said, Kay, can we dispense with the bullshit here? I said, y'all had a meeting when my name came up. I said, oh, you didn't know I heard about the meeting. And her eyes got real big. I knew what was at play. I knew what was happening. Now, while there was another white journalist who worked on the staff, same age, he covered county, I covered city government. He made numerous mistakes, but the white male editors, he was aggressive, he was a go-getter, but I was arrogant and cocky. But I was actually better than him. So I understood what was at play. So when you so you have to be paying attention. So I had one of my white staffers go, man, I would have never thought to keep up with how many stories I wrote. I said, because you don't think about getting fired. I'm black. I was the only black male news reporter in the entire newsroom. So I understood the reality of the dynamics. And so I was protecting myself. Anytime somebody would send, this is really before pre-email and social media. Somebody would send a letter, great story, I would make 2 copies. Put this in my newsroom file and put this in my HR file. Why? Because them fools that would try to fire me, and then I appealed it, they're going to open up that folder and they're going to see a whole bunch of damn he good letters in that bad boy. So I was always thinking way ahead of the game. And so that is just what you have to do. We have to understand we are living and working in places that you could be a woman, you could be black, you could be Latino, you could be Asian, you could be a man. Look, all these different places, you have to recognize that people are bringing their biases into the workplace, into the organizational place, and they exist. And they could be the most progressive place in the world, and guess what? Some of the biggest races that I've dealt with in my career have been white liberals. It happens. And so you just have to be mindful. It's human nature. You're going to deal with people who are petty, who don't like you because of your hair, or how you dress, or they think you're too loud. And so you just have to understand how do you also find allies. When I worked in newsrooms, I didn't just talk to the people in the newsroom. I talked to the folks in HR, in marketing, because see, again, I was always getting information from everywhere. Oh, so-and-so about to get fired? Okay. I'm telling y'all, I would come in like, man, how you know? Because I don't just talk to folk in the newsroom. Assistant HR. So when I left the Star-Telegram, the editor hated my guts. And I hated hers. Because she was grossly incompetent. She was. She was. She had no business getting that job. Debbie Price. Yes, I will tag your ass on social media and in a speech. I don't subtweet. So, yeah, when y'all see me go with somebody on social media, I put their name on there. So let me tell you what happened. So I had my exit meeting. She didn't know that I already knew that she went to HR and had the form not eligible for rehire. So when we in the meeting, me and her and the VP, and they're going over the whole deal. Now, mind you, I resigned. I was taking another job. I then go, oh, by the way, as a condition of this, I need to make sure that I'm eligible for rehire. She looked, and I looked. See, she ain't know. I knew the sister in HR. And the sister in HR said, look, don't forget to ask for this. See, this is why y'all cannot just talk to people in one department. You got to talk to folk all over the building to get information to use it. And man, she was so hot, and I was sitting there smiling like, got your ass. But that, just understand, you're going to deal with all of that, but it is your job to understand how do you navigate in those spaces. And I'm just a huge believer of learning to communicate with people all throughout a workforce, and nobody is too small. Because the folk who know everything are secretaries, mailroom people, and janitors. So that's why everywhere I work, I talk to everybody. What up, Bill? I speak to everybody. And other coworkers like, man, why are you talking to everybody? I'm like, because your ass don't get blindsided. Roe ain't getting blindsided when they start making some cuts and they decide that sucker a month ago in an executive meeting and the janitor overheard the conversation. Your ass is going to be late, not Roe. That's how I've always operated. That's how you manage those things. You got a question over here, Sienna?
Last question.
Where's Sienna? Where you at? Sienna, what you doing? Sienna, we gotta work on your. Ooh, Lord have mercy.
Hi, my name is Zyler Floyd. I'm a first-year journalism scholar from FAMU, and I just wanted to ask this question. Basically, I feel like I noticed in our generation specifically, it's kind of at a standstill within the Black community. I feel like there's not a lot of awareness about what's going on, at least that I've seen. And I was wondering if you have.
Okay, when you say a lot of awareness of what I've seen, awareness about what?
Awareness, I guess, just issues within the Black community going on. And I don't know, me and my dad talk about it all the time, just stuff going on in the media, being aware of our history, being aware of civics. I feel like that's a big thing too that we need to prioritize. And I was wondering if you had any tips on how to engage our generation and make them interested in learning and how to unionize. And I kind of want to go on a little spiel, but I think now we're at an interesting point where there's a bunch of different problems that everyone's facing individually that makes it hard for them to maybe have the time to focus on empowerment movements. So I just want to know how we should combat that.
The first thing, whenever I hear that, as you were talking, I immediately went to, what are people watching and listening? So I did a master class at North Carolina A&T, and I'm a firm believer. I do this wherever I go. So if I go talk to FAMU, understand what's going to happen when I roll up in there. So I give them a current event quiz. And I take some very basic questions about local, state, national. And so I threw it out there. And I would say the majority of the students absolutely failed. And so I then said, okay, where are y'all getting your information from? Shade Room, Ball Alert, Hollywood Unlocked, Jasmine Brand. They're throwing all these things out. And I'm like, okay, I see why y'all failed. Now, I know the folk who run those things, and great people. But the reality is, those are not news organizations. They're actually rewriting other people's stuff. When you look at, we saw this in the last election, majority of folk 18 to 34 were getting their information from TikTok. We now know, under the threat of them shutting down TikTok, TikTok was amplifying conservative Republican content and was deplatforming folks who are progressive. What folk have to understand is that they are thinking, oh no, these platforms are just even. No. I've got 1.4 million followers on Facebook. We had 1.76 million on YouTube. I've had 1.3 million on Facebook since we launched. When Facebook decided to de-emphasize news, we used to have anywhere from, when we went live, we would have anywhere from 6 to 10 to 12,000 people watching live on Facebook, and it was like 1,000 or 1,200 on YouTube. Today, I can go live on YouTube. Remember, 1.76, 1.4. I can go live on YouTube, and I'll have 5, 6, 7, 8, 10,000 watching live, and I have 34 on Facebook. That is impossible unless you have adjusted the algorithm. So the problem for this generation is that where are you getting information from that's trusted, that's real, that's authentic? And so that's a huge part of the issue. I had someone ask me, they said, man, you really should do some entertainment. Nope. Let me be real clear. I don't give a shit what celebrity, who they dating. I don't care who got married. I don't care who just got divorced. I don't care who had a baby. If that's the content that you want, go somewhere else. But in my 2 hours, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing gossip. I don't allow housewives on my show. I don't talk about those things. I can't, because there's so much of that. We are inundated with that everywhere else, especially in the black community, where I said, no, I cannot and will not do that on my platform. And if you want it, go somewhere else. Now, does that mean that, oh, we're doing 30 million views a month? Oh, could I be doing 40 or 50? Yep. Does that mean more views? Yes. Does it mean more money? Yes. But I can't live with that because we are already saturated with that. So when we're talking about in your circles, whether you're black or Latino, Asian, white, does not matter, you need to be asking the questions of your peers. What are you watching, listening to, and reading? Because the problem is you have folk who might have leadership titles who are grossly ill-informed about what's going on, if they're not paying attention to any of these issues. This is the greatest threat to the future of an ill-informed public. And I'm telling you, I have witnessed this, and this is not just an 18-25 thing, a 25-34 thing. This is a 45 plus. This is a 55 plus. Folk who are not informed, who are not understanding. The content that I do every day does not have an age minimum. It doesn't. But when I look at numbers, and again, if I pull up the YouTube dashboard, and I click analytics, and I go to audience, and again, the stuff that we do, news, politics, culture, we're having interviews with politicians, community activists, we're talking about a wide variety of issues. This is the age breakdown. 65, this is the last 28 days. So this is based upon views in the last 28 days. So in the last 28 days, we've done 27.7 million views, added 116,000 subscribers. Watch time is 7 million hours. Yet when I go to audience, 13 to 17, 0%. 18 to 24, 1.1%. 25 to 34, 4.3%. 35 to 44, 10.9%. 45 to 54, 20.9%. 55 to 64, 29.6%. 65 plus, 33%. 33.1%. Now, let me break down voting. What's the highest voting group? 65 plus. What's the highest group that watches my news show? 65 plus. What's the second highest voting group? 55-64. What's the second highest watch group? What's the third highest voting group? 45-54. What's the third highest viewing group? 45-54. What's the two lowest voting groups? 18-24, 25-54. 18-34 comprises 5.4% of all of my viewers. There is a direct correlation to people who vote, who are engaged in the community, to those who are actually getting real news and information. And that is the greatest threat to the future. You cannot have an informed public. Again, numbers don't lie. Anybody here who's 25? 26? 27? No, I know that. I'm doing this for a reason. 26. Anybody 27? You want 27? 27. You want 28? Okay. A 28-year-old in 20 years will be 48. That means that you're likely to have an individual over the next 20 years who likely will not be. So if you just take that age, 28 now, in 20 years, he'll fall into the third highest group. So can you imagine what it's going to look like if 18, 19, 20 today, for the next 10, 15, 18 years, is paying no attention to anything outside of entertainment, sports, gossip, and BS? It's going to be harder to get them to understand the issues that are at play. So when he asked the question earlier about media, that's the power of media. Because there's no other place. Well, my friend, your friend don't read nothing, don't study nothing, what the hell are they talking about? And so that is the danger of, well, this whole thing. I'm going to do my own research, but you don't even know how to properly Google. And don't even know how to discern what the source is. That's why when people come on my show, had a Republican like, man, why you always going hard on Republicans? Because y'all lie. I don't allow lying. If you came on my show and said something, I'd be like, hold up, that ain't true. Now you can finish. Because how I operate, if he said something that's not true, and he's listening, and if I don't say anything, he's going to go, well, I guess what he said is right, because nobody say nothing. I don't allow any lie to go. It could be a mistake. March 4th, Tiffany said something. I was like, no, it was so-and-so. She's like, oh, yeah, that's right, it was so-and-so. See, it was just something real. It was a name. I couldn't even let her keep talking, giving the wrong name, because it was wrong. That is the greatest threat to the future when we talk about this generation of young Americans. It's the information that they are getting, and it is a grave threat. And it's going to be harder for you to engage them, to mobilize them and organize them, because they're going to be so checked out. And the problem is they're going to respond to stuff in the defensive. Why we ain't know? What are you watching? What are you listening to? That's why you didn't know. And that is the hardest thing that's happening in the black community. That's the hardest thing that's happening all across this country. Yeah, I saw you waving the red card. I got you.
I told him to do it. Okay.
I know.
Everybody, please thank Mr. Roland S. Martin one more time. And I'm going to take a little bit of personal privilege. I wouldn't normally do this, but I have to do this for a special occasion because Roland did tell the story about how his viewers have completely supported this conference unapologetically, and then he also, I thought he was going to be like, nah, never mind, you got enough, and he still was like, no, I'm still going to give my pledge. Can all of my rappers please come to the stage so we can get this group photo, because y'all are here because of this man who's on the stage. The stairs over here, stairs over here. And y'all give it up for FAMU, who turns out big time at the conference. So we can get this beautiful photo. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I'm glad y'all are here.
Appreciate it.
Hey, that is so great.
What's up, Doc? All right.
You got it.
What's up, bro?
Don't touch it.
She got to have a fan. There you go. This line right here? All right, cool. Stand right there. There we go. There we go. Slide in. There you go. Turn that way, turn that way, turn that way, turn that way. There you go. Okay, there we go. There you go.
All right. Can I have everyone right here at this camera, please? 1, 2, 3. Stay right here. Any other photographers? Got it? Got it? Everybody got it?
Oh, don't move. That's cute, but I got about 4 million followers, so hold on. Actually, 4.5. So.
Everybody smile. 1, 2. Me, I can see you. 1,
Silly.
2, 3.
Here you go. All right. Here we go.
Are you taking photos after this?
Yeah, it's fine.
3, 2, 1.
All right. Cool.
Okay, good. So listen, I know that there's a lot of people in this room who want to take photos with Roland. He said he's going to stick around, and he's going to grab his thing. Where you had it? He's going to grab his things and send over here. FAMU, thank you so much. One more round of applause for FAMU. Who turned out the conference. I'm going to kick it back to our wonderful MCs. Please don't move yet. We still have one more thing to do.